Don in London, hello. It's August 16th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour equally addictive around people, places and things in the end. So substance, addiction, people, places, things, addiction. Right people, right places, right things, doing the right things. That's what I felt I ought to be doing. And to a great extent I achieved so much, but lost so much of myself in the process. Why? Well, driven by 1,000 forms of fear, of not fitting in some way into what was going on. Striving to be as good as I could be, but never perfect, and I thought you wanted me to be the perfect human to meet. So I would do anything to sort of bend myself like a pretzel, trying to fit in with other people, and always never quite sure, never quite assured enough that I was good enough. So a feeling of less than, a feeling of striving, a feeling of fear, a feeling of needing to put on a brave face, have a stiff upper lip. And if you ask me how I was, I'd say I'm fine. And there are many different ways of looking at how we say we are fine to the rest of the world. We don't want to show up, feel shameful and guilty that we don't feel quite right with the world, or we don't quite understand what's going on. But these days I prefer not to know. If I don't know something, I can ask. If I don't know something, I can have the humility to keep on learning life, because every day is going to be different. But in the old days, in my drinking days, I used to have a drink to take the edge off, feel joyful, happy, convivial, the life and soul of the party, and then somehow it slipped away into needing a drink to cope with life as it is today. And from coping to depending on to addiction. It took me an awful long time to realise that alcohol not only was bad for me, but I was addicted to it, and also addicted to the behaviour that went with it. So it was quite a horrible feeling, and I felt let down by myself, and I felt let down by the world, who had done me some injury or other. It was the world's fault in the end, but I eventually found that I had a part to play in it. So what is my story in terms of finding recovery and staying sober one day at a time for quite a while now? Simply, I couldn't do it on my own, and I needed help. But being a very belligerent and self-willed, self-obsessed person in my last drinking days, I was trying valiantly and failing to sort myself out. And one or two people around me used to say, you need to give yourself a kick up the backside and pull yourself together. But if anyone has experienced what it's like to be in addiction or be in depression, the very last thing you can do is give yourself a kick up the backside and pull yourself together. I don't even know what pulling yourself together means these days. Does it mean that I need to pull myself into a shape of being that other people want, or is it pulling myself into a shape of being the way I want to be? Well, those things I just don't have to do anymore. I don't have to try and be anything but me, little old me, and that's a good thing, just being right-sized with the world, with the rights and responsibilities of anybody else. Freedom to choose a path for me, which includes sobriety, so the rest of my life can work. And I didn't do it on my own, and I did need a lot of help from family, who did as much as they could to keep me alive, but then had to leave me to do it whatever way was going to work. So family played their part, community played their part, professionals played their part, medical people played their part. All of them tried to help me, and I couldn't stop. And then I encountered a fellowship, that is the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which seemed to have the solution to what was ailing me, a way to stay sober one day at a time. And of course I didn't really want to go there, because it meant giving up my best friend, drink. the thing which fixed me, but then was killing me. So a love-hate relationship, and my first encounters with the Fellowship of AA were not good, because I was not receptive or able to hear anything. I was still so angry and resentful at the world that AA seemed to be the last place on earth any alcoholic would want to go to. But I did in the end, and I started listening because I was so frightened of life. I'd come to the conclusion it couldn't get any worse, so why not give something a go? But in the process I did lose everything and was homeless and felt awful, because that was not the way it was supposed to turn out. And as we experience all through our lives, things just do not turn out the way we might have wished. So reality is far better for me these days. Sober head, facing what ails me physically, emotionally and spiritually. So in the physical sense, getting older means that certain things work and certain things don't work. So I deal with it. And emotionally, I do have clinical depression, but I'm in a good place at the moment. Depression, of a clinical nature, is a chemical imbalance in the brain which needs help, professional help, and I always go for professional help when it comes down to medical issues. I don't go to AA for medical solutions or cures. I go to AA to keep sober, so I can then go get a medical solution or cure for what is ailing me. So sober comes first, and the Fellowship of AA provided me with a set of principles to live by, which gives me the maximum freedom of choice based on real life situations. So it's not about some magic cure. There isn't one. There is no snake oil from the medicine man. Indeed, the snake oil for me was alcohol, and the medicine man were the people who brewed it or distilled it. So AA, what is it, and how does it help me? Well, it's the many voices in AA which help me every day. I never speak for the many voices, the many other people in AA. Never want to speak on their behalf, because this is just how recovery is working for me. And that's how it is. We come together, we learn a bit, we go away, put it into practice, see how it works for us. If it works for us, we keep on doing it. If it's not working, we find some other part of the solution from people we come to trust. People who are open, honest and willing to face reality. So what is AA and what can it do? On this little card, available from the AA meetings or groups around the world, and also freely available to read on the internet from the AA Worldwide Services website, which also has some of the literature now on it as well, so you can see these things online. And hopefully that will make some of these videos redundant, because it's not about money or prestige. Anonymity has many forms of understanding, but the primary understanding of anonymity for me in fellowship is not to share your business with other people. Don't gossip about it. AA is sacrosanct in terms of anonymity, because it affords us the place where we can find out the truth of who we are. Anonymity serves other purposes as well, in terms of keeping people level with each other. So when I say I don't represent AA, I don't. People speak for themselves where they will about their recovery, but it's about sharing a message. Anyway, here's the AA preamble before I amble on too long. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So it's a fellowship, not an organisation. You can call it a society if you like, a society of people, a fellowship of people, all there to sort out their inability to stop drinking. So that's how it works. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So if the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, the other part of that is there are no rules, laws or regulations in fellowship about your personal conduct. What you choose to do is what you choose to do. So nobody is there to control you or manipulate you. You're there to work out how to live life without controlling or manipulating yourself or other people. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So the fellowship is there for one purpose only, a desire for people with the desire to stop drinking and find out how to. However, you will encounter people with every sort of personal opinion, characterised by what they say in meetings, but what they say in meetings about their personal lives and their affiliations is their own business, and they don't try, if with any luck and hopefully, they don't try and impose their opinions or ways of living on you. And if they do, you can tell them where to go. There is something far more important to get the wisdom from those who have it about sober, no matter what their background, and that's how it works. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So primary purpose is to stay sober, that's it. So the rest of life can work, and then help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now, that's a tall order when you're new in, because it just feels awkward and horrible. Or, well, it did for me. I don't know, I can't speak for other people. But in my life, the very idea of giving up power of some sort or other was quite ludicrous. So I didn't want anything that AA seemed to have on offer, because the first step in recovery is to admit and accept powerlessness over alcohol. And if I drink, life is unmanageable. Well, I do accept and admit these days a drink won't make anything better, and it won't make anything worse. Life can be good or bad, for better or worse. Yeah, a bit like a wedding, isn't it? So, AA Daily Reflections for today from this book. This is the nub of where I started with these videos, sharing a message to fellow travellers on the road of happy destiny and sobriety at my local alcohol treatment centre, which was part of the NHS. And people there said, well, if AA is so good, why don't you do a video or two about it? You seem to have an idea. So I did, and that's how it all started some years ago. But this daily reflection book covers the 12 steps, the 12 principles of living, one a month, and the 12 traditions. So steps are about being open, honest and willing to live sober, and traditions are about unity, service and recovery. And they are principles and suggestions. They are not rules, regulations or laws, which really upset some people who like to control what's going on. But AA is not about control, it's the very opposite, actually. It's about freedom of choice to be yourself. So the AA Daily Reflection for today, which is, encompasses step 8, made a list of people we had harmed and be willing to make amends to them all, including ourselves, because self-harm is part of the story with alcohol or any substance. August 16th, I had dropped out. We might next ask ourselves what we mean when we say we have harmed other people. What kinds of harm do people do one another? To define the word harm in a practical way, we might call it the result of instincts in collision which cause physical, mental, emotional or spiritual damage to other people or ourselves. And that comes from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book. It goes on to say, I've been to 8th step meetings, always thinking I haven't harmed any people, mostly myself. But the time came when I wrote my list out and it was not as short as I thought it would be. I either liked you, disliked you, or needed something from you. It was that simple. People hadn't done what I wanted them to do, and intimate relationships were out of hand because of my partner's unreasonable demands. Were these sins of omission? Because of my drinking I had dropped out, never sending cards, returning calls, being there for other people, or taking part in their lives. what a great it has been to look at these relationships to my inventories in the quiet, alone with the God of my understanding, or my higher power, often called good conscience, and go forth daily with a willingness to be honest and forthright in my relationships. So if anybody's been in this horrible malady for some time, when we look back at how we were in terms of attitude and behaviour in relationships around romance and finance in particular, our romantic interludes may have been short-lived or long and difficult because of our dependence on drink or other people, and things get distorted and it's chaotic. At least mine was. I tried romance so many times, but I didn't know how to stop romantic interludes, so it all got a bit crammed in and difficult, and it fitted in with the morality of the time to an extent, but it did me no good, because really what I needed and desired was one romantic relationship with the right girl in the right place at the right time. But because of my distorted outlook and over-dependence on alcohol, which then led into addiction, and over-dependence on people, which led into addictive, self-obsessed behaviour, I was not a very good catch. So romantically, the girl did the right thing. She ran for the hills and found somebody more worthy. And I smile at that because it's simple. It's very simple. If we are not ourselves, how can anybody be with us? So I'd like to be more of myself today, as best I can. So some of my thoughts today. I went to a Step 5 chair meeting last night. Step 5 is sharing our life story. So I'm going to read it out rather than... Step 5 chair last night, all about sharing our life story with another human being and our higher power, which some call good conscience and some call God. It is part of clearing the wreckage of the past, making room for new beginnings. So as we let go the horror of how maybe we were, not realising just how difficult we were around people, we are making room for new beginnings. And one of the worst things we can do is fill up ourselves with old behaviour. I'm sober now, so come out with me. I'm sober now, so I need my promotion. It's not like that. Romance and finance are big in our lives. Romance and heartbreak are part of living, to love and be loved. Finance, needs met, wants forgotten. These elements of life always confounding and better approached with a sober head and an open heart today. So with a sober head and an open heart, open, honest and willing to make good how we are, simply one day at a time, and to be open to the possibilities of life, which includes romance and finance. So we are human and by no means perfect, which means if we haven't learned the lessons over the years, we've got some steep learning curves maybe, or slowly making progress, as I do. And it works for me that way. Another thought, well, this is about what I do every day. How am I feeling? Okay myself. Why? Today I have the freedom to choose. What am I going to do? Well, live in the moment. My intention is to deal with every encounter fairly, be open to change and say no emphatically to anything which is not good for me. An emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes. And that's a summary of something that Gandhi said. An emphatic no thank you. And if somebody asks you why no, you say, well, just plainly don't feel like it. It's not good for me and I don't want to do it. But I do say yes. If someone says, can you help me? I'll say yes, if I can. But if I can't, I'll say, I'm really sorry, I can't help you on that. So we work out what we need do and what we need not do. It's the can do, can't do bit of life. Can do because it's good and should be done, not should. Can do because it's a good thing to do. Can't do because it's not good for us, or simply no. It's not part of my regime or my outlook. And we are allowed to say no. That word no was something I really didn't understand for many years. So when people say no to alcohol or say no to drugs, you've got to understand what no is. But if you're a rebel, you say yes to harmful things or danger or risk, because that's what we thought we ought to be doing. And of course a certain amount of risk taking is quite acceptable in recovery because we weigh it up. Anyway, from previous years, yes, I had dropped out. My take on the daily reflection. In isolation back then and powerless over everything or anything and trying to fix the emptiness, no real choices and broken, to now, today, or back then a couple of years ago, involved and included with choices each day, equal and now the same size and rights as all humans. Inclusion with rights and responsibilities, to love, be loved and useful, always just for today. Yeah, and another year. I like that phrase, to love, be loved and useful, and I don't know where it came from actually. I know it's not of my making, at least I don't think it is, but I hear it said a lot these days. To love, be loved and useful, but we need to know what love is, and we only found out what love is as we go along. It becomes a deeper feeling, a deeper understanding, without a drink inside me. Amends and living. A catchphrase, life is difficult. M. Scott Peck's first sentence in The Road Less Travelled, and I can only say I haven't read The Road Less Travelled, but when he said life is difficult and once we accept it we have a better chance, I think that's what I've put down here. As we learn from experience and recovery what strength and hope may be in our lives. Yes, we do. We learn from experience in recovery what strength and hope may be in our lives. Difficult becomes a fact and not an obstacle. So life is difficult. Because life is difficult, we need, and I need, to have the humility to keep on learning life without feeling shameful or guilty about not knowing. It becomes the nature of living in the moment. We are part of this universe. Joyful or sad, we are connected. Forgive, live and cherish always. And the reason I think I put down forgive, live and cherish always is because if we don't forgive ourselves, we don't understand forgiveness for other people. Forgiving means that we want to change and make restitution, amends or whatever it is we feel we need to do to move on. And it's the best we can be on the day that we are trying to do these things. So when we encounter people at their worst, when they are absolutely horrible, we need to remind ourselves that's the best that they can be right now. So they can be, we can help if we can, and sometimes we have to say we cannot help because we can't. Can do, can't do. But people present themselves the best they are right now. And it might be awful or it might be wonderful, but that's just the way it is. So forgive always where we are. And if we have self-forgiveness, then we can have forgiveness. We can understand forgiveness for other people, where we say, "I'll only forgive you if." Forgiveness is without condition, as is love. Forgive everyone, everything. It was the best they were doing at the time, but it was the worst. And sometimes there are dire consequences for behaviour, and there are dire reasons why that behaviour happened in the first place, as we have found in the London riots over the last week. And a great big awful mess that is, with people saying it's because of this, it's because of that, forgetting that it's happened, and what are we going to do about it? Not for me to answer right here and right now. So what helps me always in the moment is the can do, can't do serenity prayer, which offers wisdom to know the difference of can do, can't do. And if I remember can do, can't do, I can change my attitude and behaviour, but I cannot change the attitude and behaviour of the world and the people in it. I can influence, but I cannot control or manipulate it. So can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. This is how the serenity prayer works for me. It's a prayer, it's an exhortation to conscience, good conscience, or a power greater than us, to be informing about what we can do in the moment. So for me, to God or in good conscience, the serenity prayer, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference in the moment and just for today.